Good evening and welcome to Crossroads. One of the titans in the New World vanguard is now in its death throes. This is ESG, environmental and social governance. It's the gun being held to the heads of big corporations, forcing them to adopt environmental and social policies that, well, usually go against both profits and the interests of consumers. The system works heavily through investment firms, which use their control of money to award or to punish businesses, based on how well they align with the New World globalist agenda. But that agenda looks like it's now reaching the end of the road. Well, the problem with all this? Customers, the consumers, the market, the people who buy the products. It looks like they no longer want ESG. Look at Bud Light, Target, Disney. The anti-woke boycotts are tearing into their profits. All this is sending a message. Push an agenda that people don't want, and people are not going to buy your products. If you stand against the values of your customers, they will boycott you. And this pushback is having a ripple effect through the market. Businesses that adopted these ESG standards are now making a choice that's going to harm their bottom line. They're losing money. This means they're breaking their fiduciary duty to shareholders if they keep on it. They're making dumb decisions that are costing people their investments. People are losing money because of ESG. And, well, aside from the threats of lawsuits, which I'll talk about later, why would investors put their money in businesses that are going to lose that money so that the companies can push this political agenda? Well, look. This is even beside the point that ESG may in fact be breaking antitrust laws. In other words, ESG is losing support from consumers, it's losing shareholders, companies that use it are facing legal threats. The agenda behind all of it is being rejected. It is now dying. You can see the death of ESG in the new policies of one of its top former advocates, BlackRock Investment. They managed about $10 trillion in assets back in 2021. That's about 40% of the American GDP. They're expected to top $15 trillion in the next 5 years. They are now abandoning ESG. Back in 2021, they voted in close to half of the ESG proposals. That was 47%. That was cut in half last year. And now, well, this year, they've only approved about 7% of the ESG proposals. And keep in mind, the anti-woke boycotts are new about halfway through this year. And of course, 7%, that's still a lot given how much money the firm controls. But you can see the trajectory. You can see the direction it's heading. They're getting rid of ESG now because of shareholder demands. Shareholders want to get rid of it because consumers don't want it. And if we go by what people want and what they don't want, well, it looks like ESG is on its way out. The statement from BlackRock, according to New York Post, is this: so many shareholder proposals were overreaching, lacking economic merit, or simply redundant. In other words, the free market prevails yet again. The CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, recently told Fox News that even the term ESG has been hijacked. They're saying someone took it over. He said it was weaponized by the far left and weaponized by the far right, and we lose the conversation. He noted that even though he won't use the term anymore, basically with this, he's doing other things. And it's not just BlackRock either. Vanguard, the other big company like this, one of the biggest investment firms as well, on the ESG agenda, well, they're also dropping ESG. The company manages about $8.2 trillion. They cut ESG support all the way down to about 2%. They've gone even further than BlackRock, in fact. But look, as they say, well, the king is dead, long live the king. ESG is dying, but, well, its successors are already lining up. CNN reported that the term is now being dropped, but, well, it's likely companies are going to break down the agendas according to individual topics. So instead of ESG, it will be things about climate. Maybe it'll be social responsibility, maybe equity, Forbes reported that Walmart is shifting its ESG report to LGBTQ plus pride issues. Now look, I'm sure we're going to see some creative rebranding, but beneath all that fancy wrapping paper is the same broken object. The hard reality for all of them is that consumers are not just rejecting the name. They're rejecting the thing the name represents. But it may take the powers that be some time to realize this, to wake up and smell the kafifi. Now, Larry Fink, notably, is also using a new name for it. He now refers to it as conscientious capitalism. It's not yet fully grown, but it waits in the sidelines. But what some people call conscientious capitalism, well, others just call fascism. It's the use of corporations to work as a force in government, or governance, if you want to use the ESG slogan for it. It's a way of manipulating free markets in order to use businesses as the tools for a broader agenda. Social media companies, for example, can be forced to censor their users because of, say, controversial speech. Clothing lines can be forced to promote race and gender policies. Entire industries can be crushed or even refocused on areas that, well, are just financially impractical, but, well, useful for politics. The problems with the agenda are not necessarily tied to the name. As The Hill reports, the insidious nature of ESG means that the savings and pension funds of ordinary citizens can be leveraged to support policies with which they may fundamentally disagree. ESG was causing higher fees. It was giving less profit back in return. It was a way of using a monopoly on cash in order to manipulate the markets, and it's your cash. And given that the government itself was pouring money into some of these ESG firms, including by handing them your pension funds, its agenda was being propped up by the hands of the state. Public-private partnership, they might call it. Now, where things head from here is still being determined. The cultural shift now taking place in America, the anti-woke boycotts, the songs against high taxation and woke agendas, it reflects a deeper sentiment now growing in the country. Culture reflects the character of a nation.
I wish politicians would look out for minors, and not just minors on an island somewhere. Lord, we got folks in the street, ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. But God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground, 'cause all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down.
Now pay attention to the significance of that. What people want shapes what they buy. It's also how they vote, in fact, and politicians tend to follow the current of public demand for that reason. And we can already see politics coming into the picture. Republicans have been holding hearings. They're investigating whether ESG may even violate the law. The House and Senate notably have pushed bills against ESG, although the bills would technically need to get past Biden, and it probably won't happen just yet at least. But on the local level, there's already talk of lawsuits against woke companies for antitrust violations. Shareholders talking about it as well, given notably that it's illegal for businesses to coordinate with each other like this. And it's at the state level as well. In Florida, for example, Governor Ron DeSantis, of course a 2024 presidential candidate, he has signed a law to block ESG standards in government investments. In other states like Utah, bills look to prevent investment firms from using what's now referred to as the weaponization of capital. And with BlackRock and other companies investment firms getting a lot of their money through government programs, this is a big threat to them. So, what does this all mean? Well, put simply, ESG is dying. It's dying not just in name, but in essence. And its death is part of a broader cultural shift now sweeping the United States and the world. If you want to know where things are heading, look to the changes in culture. The markets will carry the ripple effects of public demand. And the times, well, they're changing. Well, that's all for tonight. Thank you for joining us. And as always, stay informed and stay free.